Hey guys, Level Cap here, and today I'm excited to present you with the patch notes that will be going live tomorrow for Battlefield 5. This patch not only includes the Firestorm update, which will go live on Monday the 25th, but the assets will be in the game when you download it tomorrow. But it's also updating many core features of the game, some very important core features of the game, some things that I actually mentioned in my top list of issues that I want changed with Battlefield 5 right now pertaining to aircraft and vehicles. Not just that, of course, though, there's plenty of performance and weapon balance changes, so you'll definitely want to queue in if you, well, play Battlefield 5 since almost every area of the game is getting touched in some way. Now, the patch starts off with the changes that they're making to aircraft, because this is drastic. If you've been flying planes since the start of the game, or maybe you didn't like flying planes at the start of the game, they're going to be very different in terms of how they handle and perform, so your skill, tactics, strategies for specific aircraft might be completely different now. And if you don't fly airplanes, well, it might still be good to know what's being changed with their bombs and ordnance, so you know how to react accordingly. Lots of damage values are changing as well. Now, the patch notes begins with a letter from the developers talking about their intentions for the flight model in Battlefield 5. They wanted the flying aircraft experience to be inviting for new players to try out, so it couldn't be too complicated and hard to get into, but they found that two equally skilled pilots could basically be in turning wars for a long time, or just not have very many dynamic options available to them to make dogfights more interesting or really have much of a high skill ceiling to them. So they're putting the skill ceiling back in flying, and it's gonna mean that there's a lot of values change to speed and performance and drag and all that stuff, and I'll get into the details. First things up, flap scaling has been tweaked to give less maneuverability at speeds under 200 kilometers per hour. This is good. It means that going slow will no longer be as viable of a tactic. Furthermore, drag coefficient is now less extreme at 90-degree angles to remove the floatiness at lower speeds. So it should look a bit more realistic at low speeds, and aircraft hopefully won't be able to do quite as many maneuvers and goofy tactics. Drag coefficients for elevators and rudders have been separated out and tweaked to get a more physical stalling behavior, as in nose down faster when stalling. This is actually really good. Just the other day I stalled while out of bounds, and the airplane just essentially felt like it was stuck in jello, and I couldn't recover control of the plane fast enough to get back in bounds and ended up dying. So looking forward to seeing the new stalling tactics and how that can be implemented in dogfighting in a more interesting way. The elevator lift curves are being tweaked for giving optimal turn speeds above 180 kilometers an hour. This gives you a more realistic stalling behavior and allows good pilots to use this behavior in making more advanced maneuvers. The drag over velocity has been tweaked per plane to max out at cruising speeds. This means that planes will retain energy for longer and not slow down quite as fast. Gravity will affect planes more when climbing. Combined with drag changes, this makes it more viable to trade altitude for speed. You will find that decreasing only throttle will no longer affect your speed as quickly. If you want to slow down, make sure to use gravity to your advantage. With reduced drag in general, you will also find that diving allows you to gain speed faster than before. This is all really exciting. It sounds like flying is going to get a nice little dose of realism. I'm sure it'll still be arcadey and accessible for most players, but it means that turn and burn and boom and zoom tactics might become more viable. Now, boom and zoom is going to be tricky with the map sizes of Battlefield 5, but I'm excited just to try out these new things and see that if planes that are actually faster or use their altitude to their advantage can actually prevent other planes from getting on their tail because of their speed advantage. That would be really cool, and I can't wait to try it out. Now let's talk about the other general vehicle fixes. Players will no longer be clipping when on the machine gun position of the M3 half-track when viewed from the third-person perspective. Throwing grenade animation will now properly play when throwing grenades while in the passenger seat of vehicles that support this. Players can now fire rocket launchers while in the passenger seat of a vehicle that supports it. This is exciting. It means that just random Jeeps and stuff like that might become more viable or more interesting to fight armor with. Players should no longer get crushed when exiting the universal carrier at steep angles. It is now possible to repair the Valentine Archer's tank once it gets damaged. Oh my god, this is huge news for anyone who was using that tank and is actually a decent tanker, could survive and get out of combat. You would have a damaged engine for the entire rest of the round. So this should hopefully be fixed along with many of the other repair bugs in the game. Airplanes will no longer collide with medical pouches and crates, which could actually cause unintended accidents. Players can no longer damage the Pak-40 with small melee weapons such as knives. I didn't know about this bug, but it kind of sounds hilarious. They fixed an issue where players could be immune to damage during a small window of the animation when moving between in-vehicle and top gunner seats. This is good if you ever felt like you were just missing shots on players transitioning. Players will now die if they exit a plane at the moment it gets destroyed. Previously, in some cases, and by some cases, the vast majority of cases, you could survive exiting the plane which had just started to explode. This was so annoying in aircraft because an aircraft could literally be out of control, plummeting towards the earth because you disabled it or shot it down, and then the enemy player could just bail out as it's exploding on the ground. So thank God this is fixed. This has been a bug since alpha. The camera roll option now works with the Blenheim planes. They've fixed an exploit that enables players to use tanks during the waiting for players phase. And as hilarious as this was to go into the spawn location with a drivable tank and just kill everyone, it was obviously massively broken. New damage curves have been implemented for all large and medium bombs. This is really big news. These curves now give more predictable damage levels depending on proximity to target. This change affects both armor and infantry targets. Additionally, some direct hit damage present on some bombs has been moved to the explosion damage in order to achieve better damage consistency overall. The 75mm and 6-pounder cannons, which are mounted on airplanes, have had their explosive damage reduced to approximately equal the effectiveness of the BK-37 Stuka cannons in damage per second. With a substantial number of additional bombs available to these planes, the high damage output of the cannon was simply overperforming. I can attest to this, as you could single strafe a Tiger tank without even using any of your bombs. The trail effects of rockets have been substantially improved to help tracking the rockets both for the shooter and for the victims. This will be kind of a cool visual effect as well. The maximum explosive radius of the GR-21 rockets has been slightly reduced to better balance them against the RP-3 rockets. The GR-21 only needs to fire 2 rockets to get maximum damage, and the lethal killing range of these weapons was more effective than balanced. The small bombs equipped on the BF-109G2 can now be dropped together to allow both of the bombs to land closer to the target. This should enhance their effectiveness against infantry and make them a good choice against the GR-21 rockets for that trait. The 4,000-pound blockbuster bomb has had a significant reduction in blast damage, but still retains an impressive blast radius. Additionally, the large bomb has significant drag, making it slower to reach the ground when dropped. This bomb is an area of effect weapon designed to devastate large amounts of structures, vehicles, and infantry. For balance purposes, it's important that the bomb reliably damages a large number of targets over a large area. However, it shouldn't outright kill everyone there, since it's insanely overpowered, or at least was insanely overpowered. The 250-pound bombs dropped by the Spitfire VA can now also be dropped together for a similarly greater effect on target. These bombs have also received a slight boost to their blast damage against infantry, as previously a single bomb was unable to kill a full health soldier in a reliable manner. This is a change for consistency and should not greatly increase the potency of the weapon. They've reduced the splash damage of the BK-37 cannons for, I believe, the Stuka plane. Hopefully they don't make them completely ineffective against infantry targets. They fix vehicles so that they take correct and consistent damage to the top and bottom of the tanks. They've reduced the damage to the Valentine's anti-aircraft canister shot, so it takes a few shots to kill, but the 40 rounds and a good rate of fire should not reliably one-hit kill infantry at mid-range. They've increased the armor of turrets on medium and heavy tanks. These are now harder to destroy. They've adjusted the Stug and Panzer default HE shell trajectory to be slower initially but retain speed over distance. This returns the howitzer feeling of the shell without making ranged hits significantly more difficult than other tanks. Alright, for those of you sick of hearing about vehicles in this patch, don't worry, there's a lot of weapon and gadget changes as well. They've adjusted the Piat for new tank values. It now has the proper blast damage for infantry kills, but has overall a slightly reduced damage. The anti-personal mine blast damage has been reduced to below a one-hit kill again, thank God for that. With a new damage curve model giving a reliable flat damage amount out to the edge of its blast radius. They've adjusted the damage done to parts by explosives like mines and dynamite so that they do not instantly destroy parts upgraded via that specific tree. They've added new AT mine and dynamite damage curves. Mines and dynamite do very good damage if stuck or triggered by a vehicle, but rapidly drop off if detonated only near the vehicle. This also makes the lethality against infantry good only at very close ranges and then reduces to a large wounding radius. Basically, this means that if you're playing the support and you like to throw mines right next to a tank and then shoot them to blow them up, this might not do as much damage as it did before. Hopefully it's not too heavily reduced because, I mean, this tactic was hard enough to pull off and it was actually pretty fun. They fixed an issue where weapons would not gain full accuracy quickly enough when zooming in and not using iron sights. The FG42 has had its horizontal recoil reduced, making it even better because, yeah, this gun was terrible before. Thank you for making it better, DICE. Now I will test it out and see if it is any good. Thank you. The Sturmgewehr 1.5 had its reload reduced to better match up with its animation. This next change here is kind of a big one. Semi-automatic rifles. They've tweaked the recoil decrease and recoil per shot. The weapon type now has more and longer felt recoil. Numbers are not directly comparable to older versions of the game. So basically, this just means get in there, test out your favorite semi-auto rifles and see how they perform compared to before. As much as I loved running around with the AGM-42, it was a very, very good weapon. In fact, I thought one of the best weapons in the game. So yeah, this is probably a necessary nerf. The specialization polished action now has a stronger effect on the first shot to make it a better choice. They fixed a bug which would cause sticky grenades to self-replenish sometimes after using an ammo crate, so no more of that, you support players. Throwing ammo and health patches has been improved in those cases where they would sometimes just be standing too close to other objects. Melee attacks now properly do damage when both players are in deep water. They improved the V1 rocket explosion when hitting water and hitting really close to players. They made additional minor improvements to bipod placement on certain objects. I just imagine this means they improved certain maps with the bipod, not a overall bipod overhaul. Soldier animations have had a bunch of changes and tweaks to them. They all sound important, but I'd imagine it's not going to be enough to get soldier animations feeling really good, especially for those long-range sniper shots, but any improvement is an improvement. When it comes to UI elements, players can now choose whether to hold or press a button to request/skip a revive, so no more holding down those mouse buttons. They fixed a bunch of stability and crashing issues with the game. They've made improvements to performance in combined arms, and they've also improved the NVIDIA DLSS image clarity at 4K and 1440p. So I think this means that the game now officially supports 1440p DLSS. This will be something that I'll have to test out with because that's kind of exciting considering that the current anti-aliasing settings in the game are not wonderful, so trying out DLSS could be cool. On Xbox and PlayStation 4, the specialization and customization buttons have been added to the replace weapon screen, and they've also made vaulting activation improvements that work better on 30 Hz servers. That wraps it up for the patch notes. It should be going live tomorrow. The patch has been certified, so that's exciting. You can update your game, test out the new stuff like the semi-auto rifles. Also, there's an official Firestorm gameplay trailer going live tomorrow, so keep your eyes out for that. Can't wait to see it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be covering all the Battlefield news this week as in depth as I can, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.